1.2 million fans have spoken. They have liked and commented on a fan-made trailer, and the votes are in. We want a standalone Colossus movie. Even CBR said that they are waiting for a movie about Colossus. The man that can swap every carbon atom in his body with osmium deserves to be at the center of attention for once in 57 years. Since he was first introduced back in 1975, Colossus has been a fan favorite. He's always the quiet guy in the background that doesn't do much of the talking, and as a result, he never received much of a character development. But for those who have read the comics, they know how complex of a character this Russian-American mutant actually is. He appeared on the big screen in the X-Men movie in the 2000s, and he was a rather cold character. We didn't hear him talk, we barely saw him fight, so it was a meh experience. But the Colossus in Deadpool, now that's a guy we want to watch more of. He is a tough but genuinely kind guy with a heart of gold, or osmium. Fans fell in love with his character, and we did too. So we wanted to take a deeper dive into the complex psychology and the backstory of Colossus. While we're waiting for Marvel to decide whether or not to make a Colossus movie, we'll just remind them that there are fan trailers, entire blog posts, and fans all over the world raving to see Colossus in a standalone movie. And we think that Stefan Kapicic would do an amazing job at bringing his character to life. Daniel Cudmore, the actor who played Colossus in X-Men, has already said that he didn't want to reprise the role of this metal man, so Kapicic it is. He might not be the most popular actor that Marvel can find, but he did one hell of a job portraying this hunk of metal in 2 movies. It's the Colossus that people have fell in love with, so it would be only natural to see him reprise the role. As for the director, we think Tim Miller would do an amazing job at this. After all, he was the first one to capture the essence of Colossus, a member of the X-Men that no one paid any attention to until the first Deadpool. So if he captured our hearts once, we think he can do it once again. In the comics, Colossus is a good friend of Wolverine, so it would only be natural to smash that like button just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, it would only be natural to bring him back in the movie. We're thinking of Tom Hardy to take on the challenging role. Since Hugh Jackman said that he is done with Wolverine for good, we think Hardy would do one hell of a job. Plus, Tom is an actor who is capable of carrying the mantle after Jackman. The release date? If it were up to us, we'd like to see Colossus on the big screen tomorrow. But since that's not going to be possible, we're hoping that the people at Marvel come to their senses and start working on this movie. And as soon as possible. We're thinking the end of 2025 at the latest. Anything before that works well for us too. What could be the plotline for a movie about Piotr Rasputin, the man who can turn every carbon atom in his body into osmium? Well, they have a rich comic book history to draw inspiration from. Piotr is a down-to-earth guy that likes to do good, but he is ready to wreak havoc at the drop of a hat. We also know that he has some very dark roots, so they could use that as inspiration. If you're wondering what kind of dark roots we're talking about, then let us give you a hint. Rasputin. Does that name ring a bell? Maybe you remember Grigory Rasputin, the evil Russian priest that controlled the royal family and was basically invulnerable. Well, Colossus is presumed to be the direct descendant of this evil priest. But maybe they can go with another origin story, the one where Piotr suffers from radiation during the Chernobyl incident of the 80s. Piotr was just a normal baby in a hospital when the radioactivity covered the entire town. From that day forth, young Piotr started changing his body to metal. At first, it was uncontrollable, but then he learned to control the power and could change his appearance at will. Whichever way they go, there is a lot of material to draw inspiration from. In the first instance, we know that Piotr discovered his powers during his adolescence. His sister was about to get run over by a tractor. Piotr jumped in front of the Russian vehicle, turned his body into metal, and he stopped it. He was later contacted by Professor Charles Xavier, and he became a mutant. If they don't want to make any sequels, they could use the comic book story where Colossus sacrificed his life by consuming a dangerous virus, and he saved the entire human race from extinction. But what if they want to create sequels? If the movie is successful? Well, in that case, they can go for a story like the one featured in comic book number 543 in the Uncanny X-Men, titled Fear Itself. In it, Juggernaut became Kurth, Breaker of Stone. So we have no more Juggernaut, just like in the Deadpool movies. Next, they could smash that subscribe button just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, they could feature Colossus going to make a bargain with Kyderak, the deity that gave Juggernaut his powers. So now, Piotr Rasputin becomes a Juggernaut himself, crushing everything in his path. The X-Men could try to stop him from destroying the world with his newly acquired powers. Maybe they can feature Juggernaut and his sister, Ilyana Rasputin, as she discovered her new mutant superpowers. Juggernaut and the X-Men could help her learn to control those immense powers, but not before sharing an epic battle with them. She knows black magic and white magic, and she can form a metal armor around her body every time she wields her weapon. Now that's a movie we want to see. Well, what if things took an even darker turn? What if this new movie introduced Colossus's brother in the movie?
I prefer not to hit a woman, so please play.
Mikhail Rasputin was Pyotr's older brother, who became a Russian astronaut that died during a mission. Well, he didn't really die. It turned out the Russian government fakes his death, and they hid him away to use his powers for evil. Speaking of his powers, Mikhail can alter any substance to his will, and he can also hop dimensions. Nice! After his entire crew died on the mission, and he was the only one to survive, he began believing he was God. He became the leader of a group called the Morlocks in the comics. They lived under New York City, and Mikhail wasn't the greatest leader per se. He flooded the tunnels underneath the city, and he killed them all in an instant. Now, that's the type of villain we want to see in a movie. Oh, but this is where it gets interesting. He didn't stop there. He formed a special society and built a citadel for himself atop a giant hill. He said that whoever climbed the hill would be worthy to join his Gene Nation. And how is this Gene Nation guided? Well, by a simple Darwinian principle: survival of the fittest. And he's not above collaborating with other supervillains to bring the entire world to a hill. Can you imagine the X-Men trying to defeat the brother of Colossus, who once almost killed his brother when he was being manipulated and brainwashed by Apocalypse? Well, we can, and we think this story would fit perfectly with the comics. After all, Mikhail waged war on the X-Men more than once. Oh, and we almost forgot, there has to be a love story involved. Colossus is awkward with the ladies, to say the least. But in the movie, we can see him flirting his way to a date with some of his comic book love interest. Now that's a movie we'd pay serious cash to watch. See you in the next video.